I came into this campaign, three major issues. One was the censorship. And you and I feel the same way. And any government that can silence its critics has a license for any kind of atrocity.
Any government that can silence its critics has a license for any kind of atrocity.
Right.
Put that on your refrigerator, because that's true.
And then, Hamilton, Adams, and Madison said that we put the freedom of speech in the First Amendment because all the other Bill of Rights are dependent on it. And sure enough, when the government discovered that it could censor our speech in early 2020, silence doctors, silence mothers, silence people who were, scientists, who were saying, wait, there are other alternatives to what you're doing. The lockdowns aren't going to work. The masks have no science behind them. The social distancing has no science. Those people were silenced. They were marginalized. They were vilified. They were demonized. And as soon as the government figured out that it could get away with that, it went after all of our other constitutional rights. The first thing it did is it went after the other leg of the First Amendment, which is freedom of religion. It closed every church in our country for a year with no scientific citation. It went after the third leg of the First Amendment, which is freedom of assembly, with these very bizarre social distancing regulations that, again, they now admit were not science-based. They went after then the Fifth Amendment, which is property rights. They closed 3.3 million businesses with no due process, no just compensation, no scientific citation, no notice and comment rulemaking, no public hearings, all the things that I've been suing governments and corporations for 40 years, all the indicia of democracy that are that government officials have to go through before they deprive us of rights. And none of that happened. And they went after the Seventh Amendment. The Seventh Amendment is very simple. It says no American shall be denied the right of a trial before a jury of their peers in case there are controversies exceeding $25. That's all it says. There's no pandemic exception. And by the way, the framers of the Constitution knew all about pandemics. There were two epidemics during the Revolutionary War. One of them, a malaria epidemic that decimated the armies of Virginia, and then a smallpox epidemic that decimated the armies of New England at the very time when Benedict Arnold, who was our greatest general, conquered Montreal. So we were in the inner city of Montreal. We controlled Montreal, which meant we controlled Canada. And he had to withdraw his troops because he could not hold the city because so many of his troops were down with smallpox. Otherwise, Canada today would be part of the United States, but for that smallpox epidemic. And the framers all knew that. And when they gathered 10 years later, 9 years later, in Philadelphia to ratify the Bill of Rights, between the end of the Revolution and the ratification of the Bill of Rights in 1792, there were epidemics in every city that killed tens of thousands of people. Malaria epidemics, smallpox, yellow fever, typhus, typhoid, cholera. So they all knew about epidemics, yet they did not put an epidemic exception in the Constitution. They wrote that document for hard times.